Our next guest is certainly deep in the hearts of all Americans. He and his family have given much to us, and we respect this family immensely. Very proud of them. Ladies and gentlemen, here's Senator Robert F. Kennedy.
Thank you for joining us.
Senator, let me get right to the point. With this past summer, I guess none of us on the panel here recall a year like this year with so much unrest. There is rioting, labor unrest, the young people revolting against the establishment. Talk to us about it. What are we facing right now?
Well, I would think that probably, I think it's difficult in talking generalities, but it would seem to me that that the situation will continue to grow more critical in many of the areas that you've indicated. I think the war adds to it to some degree, the fact that there's violence in the world, and the fact that people are killing themselves, killing each other, and the fact that that's accepted as a way of dealing by human beings has an effect on young people and has an effect on our country as a whole, it seems to me. I think another great problem within our country is, with all of these groups, and particularly perhaps with young people, is the fact that everything's become so impersonal. Everything's so large and so big, and you feel that you don't play any role anymore, that you can't affect things. You can't affect what the government does. It's so big and it's so large and it's so far away. Spends a great deal of money, but you are just sort of a small cog. You have very little to say in how a university is run or what you're being taught, and you're just, again, a number in a university, in a school. You don't have any relationship with a teacher, for instance. And I think that has an effect.
Well, can these things ever be changed?
I think labor unions are so large and become impersonal, and I think management the same way, so that for the individual now, it's difficult for him to associate with anything or with anybody or any institution. And therefore, he begins to move in perhaps a different direction. I think that's the explanation, really, of the hippies. They reached the conclusion that they can't affect their own lives and they can't affect society, and there's a lot of terrible things they see going on within our own country and perhaps around the world, and this distresses them, but they can't see their ability to change the course of events, so they turn off. They pull the curtain down and say, we can't get off the earth, but we're going to leave it as much as we can. I think that's perhaps the major problem we have within government, but I think it's the great problem that all of us have in society as to how we're going to come back to the idea that the individual is important and that the society exists for him and government exists for him, and he doesn't exist just for the rest of us.
But as the population increases, Senator...
It becomes more difficult.
It does become more difficult.
I think that for young people, the Peace Corps made a difference, because then you could see your effort, your compassion, your intelligence, changing the lives of people around the globe who desperately needed help. The civil rights movement of the early 1960s was that also. But now, with the advent, for instance, of Black Power and so many of those who were involved in civil rights movements, one race turns against another, one group, one part of the population turns against another part of the population, then a person, you don't know where you belong in all of it and what you can do and what role you can play. And it seems to me that has a tremendous effect in our country. I think it's more than the war, as I say. I think it's all these other things. I would think the war has an effect, and again, particularly amongst young people. Perhaps we are concerned about communism. We're concerned, we lived through Russians sweeping over Europe right after the Second World War, through Hungary, through Korea, and through perhaps the crimes of Stalin. They are born during the 1950s. They don't remember the Korean War. They don't remember the Hungarian Revolution. And they come in the 1960s when President Kennedy is talking about countries getting along with one another, systems living in peace with one another, the coexistence. And then they see us fighting in Vietnam in a difficult war that's, no matter whether one supports it or is opposed to it, it's difficult to explain, and it doesn't have universal support. That concerns them.
Does there look like at this moment there's ever going to be a solution to the Vietnam
Well, I think
War?
that's very difficult. Obviously, I think I don't think if anybody has an easy solution, then I think that they'd come forward with it. But